Hey, what's going on? Thanks everyone for tuning in. Last time we had a pretty good turnout, a lot of interest, a few bugs working out, so thanks for everyone who stuck with us through that. But today I don't think we'll have that problem. So feel free to submit your questions here in the comment box. We'll try not to miss any, and we'll go from there. While everyone's filing in, I had a couple topics of interest. So I saw on Facebook today, I'm not sure exactly when it was posted, my pastor of my church, Josh Good, he said something about an inspector came out to the Hub, which is the church I go to, and fined them. Again, I don't know all the details. There's, maybe a small paragraph written about it, so I don't want to make too many claims about it since I don't know all the details. But how absurd is that? I mean, the fact that the state government is shutting down churches, that right there should be a wake-up call, a signal to people that that's one step too far. I mean, at the point where we're telling churches what they can and can't do, not we, but the government is telling churches what they can and can't do, that's probably a sign that they've gone like 10 steps too far, that the line was crossed a long time ago. But it really should be a wake-up call for a lot of people, because you got to think this country is founded on religious freedom. It's in the First Amendment for a reason. You think about the Pilgrims who came here to escape religious persecution from King James I in the early 1600s. Also, in the early 1600s, you have Lord Baltimore in Maryland, who established freedom of religion there. And, of course, the Quaker William Penn. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the colony he was associated with. And I have a friend who's a Quaker, actually. And, it was all about, back in Europe, whoever's in charge, they're going to establish the state religion, everyone has to follow it, and those who disagree are persecuted. So a lot of people came here to have the freedom to worship as they please, to worship God as they see fit, and that's a very American value. And now government's saying you can't go to church, or they're finding churches. It's absurd, and we can't sit around and let it happen anymore. So I found that really disgusting. A second thing I was thinking about, I think, what was it? Can't even remember what it was now, but yeah, go ahead and feel free to ask the questions, and we'll go from there. So thanks again for tuning in. Again, appreciate the support. I think it's a great way, with the social distancing and everything, it really can be a real lonely place. So to kind of reach out, feel like we're having a conversation, I think is a very good thing. And even if people, don't have questions or have their mind made up, who they're going to vote for, at least it's a way to engage in a dialogue. I think that's very good. Oh yeah, this was the other thing I was thinking about. So an old friend reached out to me about their campground suffering, because, it's pretty crazy. You can go to Walmart, go in crowded places, Home Depot, whatever it is, and but we can't camp. I mean, that's absurd. It's just the governor. I mean, the governors like ours is probably one of the worst, if not the worst, in the United States, is acting like a tyrant. I mean, it's absurd, and people are going to be ran out of business. And campgrounds are just another thing that maybe I haven't touched on in other videos or articles that I've written. But, come on. You go there, you mind your own business, you're a safe space away from people. So that's another thing I'm really concerned about. But I'm going to try to reach out to some folks I know and see what we can do about that, because there's no reason there's no reason anything should be closed by government mandate. I mean, that's being in a free society. You have the freedom to choose. If the risk is too high due to your health or whatever, then don't go out. There's nothing wrong with that, and I certainly won't shame you for being cautious. But when you use the government to tell other people what to do, that's where the line is crossed. That's where we're no longer in a free society. That's where tyranny is what's in place. So the campgrounds, I am concerned about. Anyone who likes to camp or just maybe cares about the cause of liberty and other people's business should be concerned about that as well. So let's get into the questions. So the first one is by Joseph, and he says, Michigan is one of the most corrupt states. What does public integrity mean to you, and how are you going to fix it? Well, Michigan definitely is one of the most corrupt states, and what I kind of touched on there certainly adds light to that fact. But even before this whole mess with our Supreme Chancellor up at the throne in Lansing, the Queen Bee, we were ranked either last or near dead last, depending on what year you look at, in terms of transparency. So I've spoken about before in videos, things like that, my commitment to government transparency. And I pledge, again, if elected, to explain every vote I take, not just whether I voted yay or nay, but actually my rationale for it. So as constituents, you can hold me accountable and say, well, I don't really like that he's voting this way, or I do like it, and either way, at least you'll have a reason why. Because so much kind of goes on behind closed doors, or like if you're not really following real close, you might not see exactly. Things get kind of swept under the rug. So there's that aspect of it. And then also, I pledged to support term limits, which again will kind of keep some of the corruption out of there. Of course, the career politicians, people like Biden, Pelosi, and whatnot, who have been in office longer than I've been alive, it's probably not a good thing, and you wouldn't want that at the state level either. So that's why we have term limits. But to get a little more deeper into Joe's question, public integrity, that's a really, I haven't met Joe in person, but I've talked to him some, and he's really concerned about this, and rightfully so. Integrity to me is, it's a lot of things, but it obviously being honest, being truthful, but practicing what you preach. And we're all humans, so we're all going to sin at some point. We're all going to screw up. But I think integrity is walking the walk. I talk about being committed to liberty. I talk about the Constitution. And, if I went up there and was status quo and was, voting for tax increases and more corporate welfare and more regulations, more subsidies, then I wouldn't have much integrity, right? Because I talk against all of that. So integrity is commitment to what you say you're going to do. And I think this whole shutdown thing has, obviously the real test would be if I were elected and holding public office to see my integrity. But I think it's a test because, I was the only, for the longest time, I was the only one even talking about it. I'm not just saying taking the position that this is the government's way overstepping its bounds, but talking about it all because so many people, this is such a divisive issue. You're going to make enemies no matter which side you take on this, but I took what I believe is the side that is with our country's values, our state's values, or what they're supposed to be at least, is the role of limited government, of a free society, of liberty, of upholding the Constitution. So to me, that's an example of integrity, of practicing what I preach. And then, how I want to fix it, number one, leading by example. I want to go to Lansing being a leader, and when something is wrong, when they're doing something immoral up there, taking a stand, I'm not guaranteeing that I can get everyone up there to vote with me on every single issue. It's probably more likely to be the opposite. But if I can take a stand, convince some people of the truth, of doing what's right, and at least let people know what's going on and taking that stand, because so many people are, well, there's nothing I can do about it, I guess I'll go along to get along, you gotta do, no, you don't have to do any of that. That is just what they tell you, which is a load of crap, so that you won't hold them accountable. But for me, hold me accountable, but I'm gonna, do what I believe advances the cause of liberty and the Constitution. And that's what public integrity means to me, practicing what you preach, being transparent, not letting the lobbyists influence you, or passing legislation that benefits only them. I'm working for the people, so that should excite people, and I think it does. That's why people are watching this video. But the more you compromise, the dirtier you become. And once you've compromised morally, once you've compromised your integrity, once you voted for that, thing you promised you'd be against, you're dirty and you can't get clean. It's not like you can just throw it in the laundry. You're forever stained. So for me, I have to look myself in the mirror every morning, and I don't want to, I want to sleep at night soundly, and I got to live with my decisions. And I want to work for you guys. So I know I'm probably rambling at this point, but that's what public integrity means to me. All right, we got another John Smith. Any ideas how to get government out of healthcare? Great question. And I did take the reflection down, the post that had the reflection, John, at your request. So yeah, I mean, government and healthcare is obviously a terrible idea, because anytime you get the government involved, you take away all the incentives, all the basic economic 101 arguments that our politicians seem not to understand. Or maybe they do and they just want votes because they think they can fleece people. But, whether it's just dumb or immoral, I don't know. Probably some of both, depending on who it is voting that way. But how to get it out would just be, changing the laws. There's so many laws, regulations, that kind of thing, and especially since Obama's term in office. But government healthcare, what does it do? It creates less options, and it raises prices. So I'm sure no one here likes either of those things. The free market is the answer because, think of it this way. I might have used this analogy before, but I think it's a good one, so I'm going to use it again. Think about shoes. What if you had one brand of shoe, like in communist Soviet Union? That shoe, would suck because that's your only option. But here, we have so many brands. Some like Nike, some like Adidas, Converse, whatever it is. But there's going to be a shoe for each specific person and what you want to do with it, what purpose you want to serve. Some are more style oriented, some want comfort, some want something light, minimalist. So the free market, the beauty of it is it provides what consumers want. But when you get government involved, and that's the only option, or one of very few options, then you just have kind of a blank, generic thing that isn't catered to anyone, that no one really wants. It doesn't serve a good purpose. So getting government out of healthcare creates more options, but that's just one thing about it. The other side is cost. So a free marketplace, because you have so many options, prices are going to drop. Because of competition, because of each, in a private sector, in a free market, everyone's competing to get customers. Well, how do you do that? There's two things you're going to do. You're going to provide a better service at a lower price. Well, when it's just the government, they don't have to do any of that because, we're your only option. We can jack up prices all we want, and we can have crappy service. So getting government out of healthcare, definitely what you want. How you do it, cutting rules and regulations, and thinking about the incentive structure, because when government's behind the whole incentive structure, it's not good at all. So thanks, Brad. I hope you're having a wonderful evening as well. Having a much more wonderful evening now that you've commented. All right, Dean. Dean says, this virus is so serious. Why are they moving patients out of the Detroit area into other areas of Michigan? Yeah, Dean, I'm glad. I don't know you. Thanks for first off, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for your comment. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm glad you're questioning everything going on because it's all a mystery to me. I don't know why they're doing it. I didn't know they really were doing that specifically. But, you know, and I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a medical doctor. So I'm not going to come in here like some of these people with their Facebook U degrees and say, you know, this is how the curve looks. This is how it should be. This is exactly what we should do. I'm not going to do any of that because I'm not qualified to. But what I do know how liberty works. I do know a little bit about the Constitution. And I'm going to say that, look, you know, this isn't as bad as they predicted, and there's no reason at all that our essential liberties should be given up for this, that people should be run out of business, that our children's future should be totally thrown down the drain. People, you know, there's foreclosures going on. Again, I kind of touched on about the campground, people's business, their jobs. So business closed, obviously people are losing jobs, or the people that, the businesses that stay in business are going to have to trim down a little just to get by. So, obviously the virus wasn't as serious as they made it sound. Now, I'm not saying go out and take all these risks or whatever. I'm not qualified to do that. But I do understand, again, economics, liberty, and the Constitution. And I'm going to say that the Karens of the world, shaming everyone for thinking they could work a job to put food on the table for the family. You know, they're the privileged ones. It's always the people who still have a job, who are still collecting a check, who are sitting home comfortably, that are telling you what to do. You know, isn't that funny? I think that's funny. Very ironic. But, yeah, Dean, I hope that answers it as well as possible. Again, I don't know why they're doing it, but, you know, it depends who you ask, you know, if it's a total hoax or, you know, how much it's played up. You know, again, I'm not going to get into all that because I haven't done the research and I'm not qualified, but I do know nothing is worth giving up, you know, your liberty to do things like go to church. Now, if you do it voluntarily because you don't want to get sick, that's different, but nothing is worth giving up your First Amendment rights, you know, Second Amendment, due process, things like that. So, that's where I stand on all of that. But thanks again for your question. Hey Blake, how you doing? What's up, JJ? Let's see. What else we got here? Penny says, everything going on right now is proof we need limited government and checks and balances. Well, I agree. And, you know, that's how the system was supposed to be set up. You know, everyone thinks the federal government runs the show and then everyone else comes in after that. But really, it's not the case. Really, when the country was set up, there was dual sovereignty. Because you have to think about this. The states made the Union, the United States of America, not the other way around. So, yes, the states have a check on the federal power, obviously the different branches of government, and, you know, the Supreme Court, I mean, before the ink was dry, not before, but right after the ink was dry on the Constitution, the Supreme Court was already just destroying everything it stood for. And you can look at, you know, Marbury v. Madsen, and then, what's the other one right after it? Early 1800s. Well, John Marshall. I mean, just look up Justice John Marshall. He is the reason we have such big government today, because he's the one who basically said, well, the court can do whatever they want. And of course, you have Alexander Hamilton, who in the Federalist Papers was preaching limited government, and he did the old bait and switch, because as soon as the Constitution was ratified, because, you know, some of the states, like Virginia, didn't want to give up the power they had to this big central government. So, you know, the Federalist Papers talked him into ratifying it. And as soon as he gets in under Washington's administration, very influential there. And next thing you know, he wanted a monarch, basically. He wanted a life-term monarch that would be through the, I'm pretty sure, I know that part, but I'm pretty sure through the, like, family bloodline, kind of like England. He also wanted senators to have life terms, so he really wanted a very big government and a very centralized government that would benefit very few. Because he grew up as not a slave, but he grew up in, I think it was Barbados, and you know, he worked his way up. His life story, actually, as a kid, is very inspirational, because he started dirt poor with nothing. But the people he worked for were very rich, very wealthy, very influential, and I guess he kind of wanted to be like them. So that's how he wanted our government to be, so that he could be in that class. And, you know, he is a war hero in the revolution, but after that, I mean, he is the father of big government. And look at any of the issues we have today, the Federal Reserve, banking system, centralized power in the Fed, again, federal government. Those are all Hamilton's creations. But anyways, I'm sorry for my little history rant. You know, checks and balances, exactly. So the governor does not have the power by executive fiat to come and tell us what to do, to close our churches, close our shops, make us stay home, make us... I mean, the fact that people can't travel from one home to another, are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. She does not have the power to do that. Okay? So, that's why, you know, the legislature needs to step in and say, look, we're not going to do that. And, you know, I know it's going through the courts and whatever, but, again, I just touched on this. How good are the courts at protecting our rights? They're not. They're awful, actually. Because some of the worst things about our society today are because the Supreme Court of the United States, you know, by a 5-4 vote. So if 5 out of 9 people think this is the way it should be, that's how it goes. I mean, think about that. That's not right at all. But, you know, we need more people in the legislature to step up there and say, look, this is enough. Not play the line. I know that Karens are going to come after you if you step to Whitner, but guess what? Do what's right. That's what I'm running for. I'm not running so that everyone's my best friend and everyone loves me, you know, and they make a monument about, you know, some people are going to hate my guts. And I know some already probably do. But guess what? Like I said earlier in the video from Joe's question, I got to live with myself, you know? So I'm not going to be able to do that, saying, you guys can't go to church, you can't work, you can't keep your business, you're going to starve, but guess what? At least everyone likes me. No, that's super immoral. That's wrong. So I will not stand for any of that. I will stand for our rights. I will do what I think is right based on the Constitution, based on American history, the principles of liberty, and what I know about economics. So thanks for your comment, Penny. I totally agree with you. I know you support the Constitution, so I appreciate what you're doing as well. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to touch on that, but whew, got a little worked up there, huh? That's what you want, someone who fights for you, right? The internet connection's a lot better today, too. I don't know what's with that. Thanks, Brad. I hope you're having a wonderful evening. Trey, I haven't talked to you either in a while. Yeah, things are going all right. Wish we could play wiffle ball this summer. Well, that's okay. Because, you know, heaven forbid, that would be like first-degree murder. JJ, Governor Whitmer has no business to run people's lives and stuff like that. Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I touched on it, but it's like, did we fight a war from a monarch to have another monarch here? No, we didn't. Of course not. Of course not. She has no authority. And actually, oh my gosh, this reminds me of something I was listening to today. So Dave Smith was saying this, and he was talking about a video he was watching with his wife about abortion. And this is going to be relatable, so just hang with me. So in this video, I think it was more of a pro-life themed video. Actually, I can't remember now. I thought he said that. But there was an abortionist, or whatever you call a doctor that performs abortions, and he said that, well, of course it's, you know, he's been doing it for 25, 30 years, and he goes, oh yeah, you know, there's nothing wrong with this, you know, what the typical argument, and he said it's totally moral, totally fine, it's lawful, of course, you know, of course, because of Roe v. Wade, it's lawful, but Dave made a great point. He said, well, of course this guy thinks it's lawful. He's been doing it his whole life. I mean, if he thought it was unlawful, you know, of course, or immoral, I should say, of course he wouldn't be doing it. So that kind of brings us to Governor Whitmer and the other, you know, draconian orders from the other governors for the shutdowns is she already did it, she's not going to be mid-doing and be like, man, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe what I'm doing is totally messed up. No. She's going to double down on that, just like in his example, the abortionist or whatever, and say, well, yeah, I'm keeping these people safe. I'm doing the right thing. Well, of course she's not. Of course it's evil and immoral. But, I mean, once she already thinks that, her continuing actions are going to follow that train of thought. So I thought that was really interesting, a really good point. But, of course... Of course, it's a horrible thing to do. So, but thanks again for your comment, JJ. All right, Trey Conrad. He says, "Is the Lost Nations shooting range open? Do you know?" Last I checked, they had the actual range area taped off. I don't know. Go out there. No, this isn't legal advice, by the way. But I don't know. I think it should be open because social distancing, again, I want people to be safe. Of course I get demagogued. You want people to die. No, I want people to be able to provide for their families, and I don't want their children's future ruined, so maybe those people want people to die. But... I think it's a great activity, being out in the woods, whether it's hunting, shooting, whatever, fishing, being outdoors, being with people already in your own household or whatever, so that you can social distance, but still, still do something, because, all these people want you to just, what do they want you to do? I mean, mental health is a real issue, and actually this was a question asked I think last time that I missed. It was something about mental health. Eric Moore asked it, and I do appreciate the question, Eric, but, I missed it because, again, we had all these quirks. Some on the more conservative side, I think, don't take mental health as serious as it is, because it's not like a broken leg or ankle or whatever. You can't see it, but it's real. I know a ton of people who have had many mental health issues, and it's no joke. It really isn't. So we should... on this side of the aisle, the more conservative, take it seriously because it's a real thing. But that being said, in issues like this, I mean, people who are already struggling, maybe from depression, anxiety, things like that, are already more prone to be isolated. But now you say, oh yeah, well, you have to be isolated. Well, that's just feeding it, So that's awful. And I wish, because some of the people who claim to care about mental health also are the stay home, stay safe, Karen Gestapo types. So which is it? Do you care about people's mental health, or do you want to be draconian and order everyone in their house? Because you can't care about both. I do care about mental health. I do think it's serious. I don't think government necessarily has the answer, because government never has the answer. But I do think we should, as a society, from more of a social perspective, care more and take that more serious. But again, if we want to take that serious as a government policy, then let's let people do things. The sun's out in Michigan, the seasonal depression, you have things like that. So let's get outside and enjoy ourselves. And it's not gonna solve people if they have real severe mental health issues. I'm not claiming that, and I'm not I'm not in that line of work. I stay in my lane. You guys probably noticed, but from what I do know, it's going to be better if people at least have the option to be social and to do, just like the gym. I mean, I know a lot of people, myself included, go to the gym purely from mental health. It's good for your mental health to exercise. Well, the gym, you can't go to the gym. So that's another thing. So let's open up the gym, And, feel free to ask some more questions. I'm not seeing many more. We can end it here. I don't want to bore people. I don't want to rant. Beautiful day out. It's a little chilly, but... Hi, Mary. I see you're watching it with me. I got a notification there. I haven't talked to Mary Ellington in quite a long time. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for tuning in. Well, I tell you what. We've been running about a half hour. We'll take a quick break. Post some more questions. If not, I'll wrap it up and and get out of your hair and enjoy the rest of your evening. But that's what we'll do. So stay tuned and post some more questions. Thank you. Hopefully we get a couple more, because there isn't that much activity right now, is there? You think I should wrap it up after that? I mean, I was thinking, if that's the last question. And we're back. I told you guys not to go anywhere. Thanks for those who stayed. What do you think? I mean, this time we have had less technical difficulties, so we'll wrap her up here. I don't want to bore people. Well, now he's free. All right, so where do you stand on the stimulus checks? Was it the right thing to do? Well, there's going to be a pretty nuanced answer there. Anyway, so yeah, back to the question. Yeah, so I mean, it's a tough one because, if the government's going to tell you you can't work, then, they do need to provide something for people to get by, because otherwise people aren't going to be able to eat, things like that. So, there's definitely an argument for taking action, and I see that. The thing to keep in mind is it's not government money. Government doesn't have some kind of emergency fund, Dave Ramsey style or whatever. It's taxpayer dollars. So where's government getting the money for the stimulus check? Well, two places. They're borrowing the money or they're printing the money. Both are awful and both are going to hurt us in the long run, especially the next generations. So I do think maybe as a short-term temporary thing, the stimulus check isn't the worst idea, but you got to keep in mind what's going to happen on the other side. Now, here's where it gets more nuanced. How they did it, I completely disagree with, because I don't have the exact figure, but I think it's for every couple $1,000s a family got, $17,000 was spent. What does that mean? There was a ton of pork in the deal. So just like usual in Lansing, all the lobbyists get their cut, and their cut's like 9/10 of the cake, and then all the rest of us get whatever's, I don't want to use breadcrumbs because I sound like Pelosi there, but what's left. So the thing is, we're getting a ton of debt, we're printing a ton of money, which leads to inflation, which means your hard-earned dollars are worth a lot less money in terms of purchasing power, so that we can bail out banks, big corporations, and all that. And that's completely immoral. It's awful because it's the same thing in '08. It's a bigger bailout than '08. The TARP bailouts. I'm really disappointed. Thomas Massey, look into him because he spoke up about it and he's a lot more knowledgeable on it than I am. But it's real disappointing. Because, people do need the money to get by with all of this in place, especially in the beginning when we didn't know how bad it was all going to be. But, again, what was the cost? It was awful. And again, so let me be more clear. I don't want to seem like I'm talking around the issue. If they would have just said, hey, we're going to print money and we're going to borrow money and it's just to get us through this short time because we really need it, it's fine, whatever. I'd say that's fine. If they're going to make us not work, we got to get by somehow, right? But when they're going to start putting all this pork in, giving handouts to their little buddies out there and things like that, then no, that is totally wrong and immoral. And a lot of people don't know about it because very few are talking about it. Just people like Thomas Massey. So that's wrong, and I'm against that. A lot of people think, oh, you're a Republican, you're a conservative, you love big business. I love the free market, but what people need to realize, free market means no government intervention. Free market doesn't mean, the government's going to steal from the taxpayers to prop up a few huge businesses. That's fascism, actually. A lot of people think fascism, because they think of the Nazis, fascism is has something to do with like race, hating certain ethnicities or whatever. Well, that was Hitler's form of fascism, but really, fascism is a form of socialism. So it's kind of like Pepsi and Coke. Pepsi and Coke, no one would argue, they're both cola, right? They're just different brands. So communism is one form of socialism, which is the state owns everything, the means of production, and that's what you get. And then fascism is a little bit smarter because you still have private businesses, but it's not a free market. The government props up a few big private businesses. Now, I don't agree with either because they're both socialism, but that just gives you an idea and explains it. I know now I'm kind of getting on a tangent there, but that's something, a distinction I think is very important because people don't really understand what fascism and communism is and that's why Hitler and Stalin had such a rivalry because they both said, well, our form of socialism is better. Well, they're both evil. So I think freedom's better. So I hope that answered it. Again, stimulus, and it was what it was. It's not a terrible idea for a short term in a really severe crisis, but the way they did it was awful, and I disagree with that. Because we all got screwed over. We all had, our tax dollars went to prop up big corporations and millionaires, so I don't think anyone thinks that's fair, that's a good idea. Anyone who's being honest. Alright, next question. Trey Conrad, very active in the chat today. I wish he was active in other chats. In my neighborhood, we had some kids out playing wiffle ball, and one of the neighbors threatened to call the cops on them for being outside and not social distancing. Social distancing, in air quotes. What are your thoughts on people around the state threatening to report incidents like these to authority? Well, great question, Trey. Thanks for asking. Well, my thoughts are, you sound like a brown shirt if you're doing that. Now, from a government perspective or me running for office, there's not really much I can do other than saying I wouldn't support call the cops on kids playing wiffle ball hotline. Of course I wouldn't support, especially taxpayer dollars funding that. That's absurd. But, it is what it is. Shame your neighbors, tell them what they're doing is immoral. Maybe try to come at it from Not as harsh as I just said it, because you catch, what do they say? You catch more flies with honey, or whatever the saying is. So maybe just talk to your neighbors calmly and say, look, you're the type of people that would call on Anne Frank or Harriet Tubman. No, don't say it like that. Although they probably are. Like, being honest, they probably are that type of people. But and don't call them a redcoat either, or a Tory. But just say, hey, look, these kids are just having fun, getting exercise, and just chill out a little bit. We all want freedom here, okay? So, yeah, I totally disagree with that decision. I really can't stand people like that, to be just blunt. But, being a jerk back to them probably isn't going to solve it. But at some point, you have to let them know what they're doing is wrong. So if it comes to being a jerk, don't assault them or anything, but it is what it is. So, hope that answers it for you. I'm sorry you had to witness that, Trey, because that would be very traumatizing to me as well. Oh, wow, the video just disappeared on me. Oh, no, here it is. All right, Marilyn, that's my grandma, Nan. She says, what is your number one priority to change after being elected? Wow, that's not an easy one, because there's so much that needs change. But I think the number one thing is reevaluating how we look at the role of government and restoring. Here's what it is. Here's your quote: restoring government to the way it ought to be. Government is not here to run your life, to tell you what to do, or even to take care of you. Guess what? That's on you. So, as government isn't here to be our nanny, right? So, I think that's what it is, and we'll all be better off, because people think, oh, you're cold-hearted, you don't want this. No, I want people to be free. They can go a ton of other places in the world and be in bondage and slavery, but I want people to be free. I want people to be free to, run their business how they want, to keep as much of their paycheck as possible so they can use that for their family, their kids, whether it's sports, college tuition, whatever they want to do with their kids. The role of government is to protect life, liberty, and property. That's it. And when it comes to life, fighting against abortion. That is a very high priority of mine. Again, another divisive issue, but I think, we'll get support, especially as the science is changing. So that's another thing. But my priority is restoring government to the way it ought to be, letting people run their business how they want, cutting back on the regulatory state, no new taxes, read the lips, not HW style, but for real, and making Michigan a place. People are embarrassed right now because they see our governor on the news. They see how things are in the state. Detroit, all these places needing bailed out. Like, it's a mess. Flint, Detroit, and all that. I want Michigan to be how it used to be, a place people are proud of. The automobile. The big three motor companies were here. So many jobs. Good, hardworking, blue collar jobs, and industry, and it was a place to be really proud of, but all that's going away, and it's sad. But I want to, obviously I'm not one person. I can't just totally wave a wand and change it all. But my vision for our state is going back to a place people are proud to be from. We're in the Midwest. We have the Midwestern, conservative values, and we also have a place where people are free, where industry's booming, and people can get jobs and all of that, and people can start businesses, which also give jobs, give new products, innovation. I want to be places, I'm going to come here to set up a place, invent this, the next thing, the self-driving car. Those are kind of already in the works, but, the flying car maybe 10 years from now. I want that to be made right here in Michigan. But if we have all these rules, all these regulations, all these taxes, businesses being shut down, no one's going to take a risk. Because new innovation is always a risk, right? You're putting what you have on the line. Investors have to be willing to jump into that. So I want this to be a place where people are like, yeah, this is where I am. This is where I'm proud to be from. So that's my vision. But again, one of my typical tangents. But my priority is restoring government to the way it ought to be. So thank you for that question. To go on to the next. Hopefully this is smoother. I know we're approaching about 45 minutes into it. But, so Penny always has some really good questions, really involved, so thanks for your question, Penny. Hillsville Airport got some COVID-19 grant funds. What are your thoughts on that? You know, I didn't know they got that. I don't know how much they got or the details, so I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to go too much into it without doing some more of my own research, because I don't think that would be right. You know, it just depends, because who's giving out the grants, you know? I mean, at the end of the day, you can't really be mad at someone for taking grant funds if they're being offered, right? If you don't, and I'm on the side, right, as a conservative who believes in limited government, I don't want all these grants, all these bailouts, all these stimulus. You know, most of these things I don't agree with. Anyone who follows me at all probably knows that. But you know, the problem isn't people taking the grants. It's for the grants. Okay, for the grants we don't like. The problem isn't really that people take them. It's that they're there in the first place, right? So if you don't want something, it's got to be the government not giving out handouts, you know? Just like people who maybe you're mad that they're not working and you know, they're collecting some type of welfare. It's like, well, in one sense, can you blame them? Because it's there, you know? You need to change the law. Which I'm not saying it's necessarily morally right to do, but more importantly, you know, and as someone who wants to be in the legislature, I want to make the law more fair so that people who work hard and contribute to society are rewarded, and we don't incentivize people to not contribute and just leech, you know. So, sorry for not knowing too much about that. I will do more research, of course, but you know, I think anytime there's an issue, we need to look at what the incentives are from an economic perspective, and how we can make it more fair. But, you know, anytime the government gets more involved, usually things get worse. I mean, that's a great general rule of thumb. I can't think of a time where that is incorrect. So, see where we're at, see if we've got any more questions, comments. You know, there's still some interest, seemingly. And thanks again for those that, you know, we're almost approaching, you know, we're about 50 minutes. So thanks for those that stayed in. I know I get off tangent, but you know, I think this is fun. I mean, I hope you guys do too. I mean, I think something, you know, of course I'm going to toot my own horn, but I'm running for office, right? So I'm allowed to do that. Is, you know, these answers, none of these questions, maybe one of them was asked ahead of time. So these are all off the cuff. These aren't, I'm sitting here researching, spending hours, you know, consulting with people, whatever. These are off the top of my head. So I think what that shows to you is where my gut instinct lies. It's in the right place. It's in liberty. It's in sound economics and, of course, the Constitution. So, in conservative principles. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously if I'm voting on a bill, it's going to be a little more complex. I'm going to do my research. I'm going to have a more in-depth answer on anything. And, of course, I'll give my answers on Facebook, as promised. But I think the most important thing is seeing in someone you're voting for is, you know, where does their heart lie? Where are they on the issues? What is important to them? And for me to be able to just spout off the top of my head probably shows, you know, I mean, if you're someone who thinks like I do at least, then, you know, that I have sound principles. So let's see if there's any more questions. Andrew Wilcox, well, nice of you to tune in. Absolutely, Darren. Less regulation equals more opportunity for innovation. Well, that's great. Maybe we'll have to make a bumper sticker with that quote. We got 4 reactions. Linda, do we got anything else? Alright, Trey's got another comment. We'll read it out. I love Michigan, but seeing pictures and videos from people down south living a free life really has me just messed up. Really has me second guessing the mitten state right about now! Exclamation. I'll tell you this, one thing I can't promise is if elected, I cannot change the weather.
Yeah.
So, but I don't blame you, and especially, I mean, with having more freedom, you know. Some people like the snow, you know. I love hockey. People probably know that. And, you know, but I do love the warm weather. But I love freedom more than both. I know it's crazy. I do love freedom more than hockey, even the Red Wings, but or Michigan hockey. But you know, we need to have more freedom. That's what's going to attract people here. You know, people like the warm weather. There's nothing we can do about it. But people like freedom. If we create a state that's more free, we'll attract more great business people, more hardworking blue-collar folk, more people, you know, good doctors, good, you know, whatever, good lawyers, if there is such a thing, and all of that. So. But thanks for the comment. It's not a question, it's a comment. But thanks for the comment, Trey. JJ, amen, big bad Andrew. Thanks, JJ. I appreciate some of the hype you've given me on social media. Next question. D. Walker. When will a debate be set up with the other candidates? Well, I'd like to know that too. I would love to debate all the other candidates. And I said in my last video, especially on this issue of the shutdown, because the thing is, you know, on some of these issues before all, you know, everyone's going to complain, of course I'm conservative, you know, because we're in a 70+% Republican district. But, you know, now it comes to something that is divisive, even among people who maybe lean more Republican. And, you know, some of the candidates, you know, crickets. Allegedly, someone actively saying, you know, apparently we're a bad guy, or, you know, people like me and a lot of you guys in our line of thinking are bad. Oh my God, we want people to be free and choose for themselves and be able to go to church and be able to provide for their family. What horrible people. Yeah, let's get on stage. Let's see what your, you know, I said in the last video, so watch it, but let's see what your excuse is for that, because, you want to talk about being destroyed? I think that's what will happen to you on that issue. But as far as the debate in general, I'd love to have one. Like I said, anywhere, any place, any time. You know, maybe someone like Penny or other people involved with the Republican Party could set one up. I don't know. Obviously, with the social distancing, that makes it hard. But even without that, you know, you have to have a neutral moderator. You have to have a venue. Like I said, I'll do everything I can to be available for that. It doesn't have to be advantageous to me. You know, we can do it on CNN where Wolf Blitzer's against me. I don't care. You know, I think I'll make the best, because it gives you guys an opportunity to see everyone against each other. Whether it necessarily benefits me or not, I don't care, because it's right for you. But I think it will benefit me, because I think I have the principles which will make me quick on my feet. I don't need some recited, you know, line or whatever to prove my point. But yeah, I'd love to have it. So if anyone wants to get on setting that up, love to do it. And you know, with the social distancing, you know, Zoom. So John Smith mentioned like a Zoom. Sure, yeah, I'll do that. My only concern with Zoom is, you know, connection, kind of like we ran into last time on this. You know, if people are talking over each other, it could get really irritating. Now, I'm not saying I won't do it. I'm not scared. So yeah, of course I'll do it. But I would much rather just do it in person. I mean, what if we, I'm just thinking this right now, what if we did, you know, 4 podiums, spaced out 6 feet or whatever, so we don't all get thrown in the gulag. You know, a moderator, again, 6 feet in the front, moderator 2 or 3 asking the questions, you know, however, someone semi-neutral. I know it's kind of hard to find someone neutral, but as best as possible, people we can kind of agree on, because I do want it to be fair, of course. And then, you know, we could have no audience to social distance. Everyone could tune in on their Facebook or something like that. Why not? Or YouTube. I mean, whatever will get the most people. I don't care. But, I mean, there's still ways you can do it. And again, I'd love to do it. I'll do anything I can to be a part of that. I think you guys get the point. I'm not afraid to do that. And it's not that I'm not afraid. I'd love to do it. I think it would be fun. And I think it would be great for all of you. So, great question, Dee. I thank you for asking that. And I think it's a great idea. Apparently Andrew Wilcox and JJ think it's a great idea too. Penny, we cannot get a debate set up till things open up. Okay, I understand. Like I said, just a couple ideas off the top of my head. I'm not saying I'm right, but just an idea. So I'm not seeing any other questions or comments. Maybe I need to refresh. But feel free to leave some more. We're almost an hour in. So I won't keep you guys much longer. Unless, if anyone has anything, you know, speak now or forever hold your peace. You know, I hope everyone, I'll just leave this while we're waiting, you know, I hope everyone is staying safe, their family's healthy. You know, again, I really do care about people, and that's why I hold the position I do. But, it's tough, you know, we're in tough times, but liberty once lost is lost forever, as John Adams would say. So don't give it up, because you're never getting it back, you know. So, that's that. Not seeing anything else, so... Oh, we might have to... Thanks, Penny. Yeah, she thought they're good ideas. She'll talk. And I appreciate, you know, I'm not calling you out, Penny, specifically. It's not your job to make all this happen. I'm not trying to be like, oh, well, Penny's wanted it and set it up. It's her fault. No. I saw in the comments. I know she's very involved, so I thought I'd say, hey, set it up, you know. It's good to be reliable, right? But, you know, people in the Republican Party, people involved in politics, it'd be real cool, I think. And it'd be, again, great for everyone to make, you know, there's a lot of undecided people making an informed decision. So, you know, maybe we won't be able to, but it won't because I didn't want to, we'll put it that way. So, hey, you know, we're about an hour in. I'm not seeing any more questions, but thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks for your questions and your interests. If there's any other things, you know, for me, you know, email me, wiselyforstaterep@gmail.com. Shoot me a Facebook message, text, whatever. Happy to do that. And I really look forward to talking to more people in person, you know, because that's just the best way to communicate the message, right? And, you know, anyone wants to get involved with the campaign, I'll say this, especially, you know, people want something for like a high school, college resume. You know, when things open up, we'll be looking for that, too. So get a hold of me for that. It might be a month out. You know, we're not going to work you like slaves or nothing, but something to think about. But anyways, everyone, thanks for tuning in. We had another great turnout. Everyone take care, God bless, and have a great day. See ya.